Circumstances are not your identity. It's easy to look at your surroundings and think that's all you'll ever be. When your reality is filled with struggle, limitations, or silence where support should be, it can begin to feel like those are the boundaries of your worth. But the truth is, circumstances are conditions, not conclusions. They describe where you are, not who you are. They are chapters, not the entire story. And if you're reading this, you're still writing. People will try to define you by what they see on the outside. They'll measure your worth by the size of your home, the clothes you wear, the job title you hold, or the address you come from. Some will even look at your struggles and think they know your capacity. But they don't know the weight you've carried, how long you've been fighting, or the size of the dream inside you. They see the surface. You live the depth. Circumstances can be inherited, imposed, or accidental. You didn't choose the family you were born into. You didn't choose the economic background, the neighborhood, or the early life experiences that may have left scars you're still healing from. But you do choose what you carry forward. You choose what becomes a part of you and what stays behind as a stepping stone. There are people who walk through life wearing their situation like a label they never asked for: poor, broken, abandoned, misunderstood, forgotten. Those labels become silent burdens, shaping their self-worth, their voice, their vision of the future. But a label stuck to you by someone else doesn't have the power to become your name unless you answer to it. You are not the product of what happened to you. You are the product of what you decide to become. Maybe you've been told that your background disqualifies you from something greater. That because no one in your family went to college, you can't either. That because you failed before, success is for someone else. But those messages aren't truth. They're echoes of fear passed down through generations or born out of someone else's insecurity. You don't have to inherit the limitations of those who came before you. You can learn from their stories and still build your own. The danger of identifying with your circumstances is that it limits your movement. If you believe your situation defines you, you'll never attempt to move beyond it. You'll sit in struggle when you were built to rise. You'll get comfortable in pain when you were meant to evolve through it. But the moment you realize that your present isn't permanent, that your environment isn't your identity, is the moment you begin to walk in freedom. You are allowed to grow in soil that wasn't designed for growth. You are allowed to bloom in places people said nothing beautiful could come from. In fact, some of the most powerful individuals have emerged from hardship. Why? Because they refused to let the walls around them become the ceiling above them. They redefined the meaning of their pain and turned their circumstances into purpose. Circumstances are temporary, but identity is eternal. Your values, your persistence, your kindness, your vision. Those are the things that define you. Those are the things that shape the legacy you're building. When you confuse circumstance with identity, you hand over your story to something that wasn't meant to hold the pen. You start believing in limits that don't belong to you. And in doing so, you shrink to fit into a space you were never meant to occupy. There will always be moments when life tries to whisper that where you are is all you'll ever be. But that whisper is a lie. You weren't meant to carry your environment like a badge of shame. You weren't meant to adopt your struggle as your name. You were meant to see it, acknowledge it, grow through it, and then rise beyond it. Pain can be a pathway. It doesn't feel like it when you're in it. When the nights are long and the silence is loud. When the weight of everything presses on your chest and hope feels like a stranger, the idea that pain could serve a purpose sounds cruel. But pain has a strange way of being both a wound and a teacher. It cuts deep, yes, but it also reveals. It strips away the illusions, the noise, the distractions. And what's left after the pain is often more real than anything that came before it. There is a type of growth that comfort cannot give you. There is a depth of character, a fire in your spirit, and a resilience in your bones that only pain can forge. You don't get it when everything is easy. You don't find it in the smooth seasons. It's in the breaking that the rebuilding begins. It's in the falling apart that the pieces of who you really are begin to surface. When you're walking through pain, it can feel like the world is closing in, like time has slowed down and your heartbeat is too loud and nothing makes sense anymore. But pain isn't the enemy. It's the process. It is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to transform you. Every tear you've cried has carried something out of you that didn't belong. Every sleepless night has carved a little more strength into the frame of your soul. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every loss. They didn't come to define you. They came to refine you. There are things you learn in pain that no book, no lecture, no mentor can ever teach. You learn how to stand when everything is pushing you to fall. You learn how to breathe when life tries to take the air from your lungs. You learn how to hope, not because it's easy, but because it's the only light left in the dark. Pain forces you to meet yourself, not the version of you you show to the world, the real you, the raw, unfiltered, unprotected you. And once you meet that version of yourself, you can no longer pretend. You can no longer settle. You can no longer lie small. Pain wakes something up inside of you that complacency would have let sleep forever. It puts a mirror in front of you and says, "This is who you are now. What are you going to do with it?" Some people run from it. They numb it, they drown it, they pretend it's not there. But those who sit with it, those who face it, they come out different. They come out stronger. They come out clearer. Pain has a direction, even if you can't see it in the moment. It leads somewhere. Sometimes it leads to purpose. Sometimes it leads to wisdom. Sometimes it leads to peace that isn't based on circumstances but rooted in truth. But it always leads. It is not a dead end. It is a detour, a redirection, a deeper calling. And the ones who understand this don't avoid pain. They walk through it with eyes open and hearts ready to be changed. Think about all the things you've overcome that you thought would break you. Think about the seasons where you didn't know how you'd get through, and yet you did. That's not weakness. That's proof. Proof that pain didn't stop you. That somehow, even while it hurt, you kept moving. That even with the weight on your shoulders, your feet still found the strength to take the next step. There is a sacredness to pain when you stop trying to escape it and start asking what it's trying to show you. It reveals your capacity. It shows you what matters. It strips away the excess and calls you into a deeper version of yourself. And though it may come uninvited, once it arrives, it demands your attention. It calls for a response, not to give up, not to shut down, but to lean in, to listen, and to grow through what you never asked for but somehow needed all along. Choice is power. It's one of the few things in life that remains entirely yours, no matter what's happening around you. You don't get to choose where you're born, who your parents are, what kind of trauma you've faced, or what circumstances you woke up to this morning. But you do get to choose how you respond. And that response carries more power than you realize. Every day, in small ways and in life-altering moments, your choices are shaping your future. They are silently writing the story of who you're becoming. The world will try to convince you that you're a victim of what happens to you. That if you've been hurt, if you've been wronged, if you've been overlooked or mistreated, you have no choice but to live in that identity. But that's not truth. That's fear dressed up as logic. Yes, pain is real. Injustice is real. But what's more real? What's more enduring? Is your ability to choose in the face of it all. To choose how to carry your pain. To choose whether you build from it or break under it. Choice is the quiet force behind every transformation. You might not feel like you're in control, especially when everything around you seems chaotic, but you are. Because even in the chaos, you can choose your attitude. You can choose your focus. You can choose to speak up or stay silent, to act or to retreat, to believe or to quit. And those decisions, those seemingly simple acts of will, hold immense power. There are people who rise from the ashes of things that should have destroyed them. Not because life handed them a miracle, but because they made a choice. They chose to get back up. They chose to believe that something better was possible, even when they couldn't see it. They chose to put one foot in front of the other when everything in them wanted to stop. That's power. Not the power that comes from position or privilege, but the power that comes from within, a decision to keep showing up, to keep becoming. Every time you decide not to let bitterness define you, you claim your power. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, truth over convenience, growth over stagnation, you are stepping into your potential. It doesn't mean it's easy. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is make the right choice when the wrong one is more tempting. But that's where strength is built. Not in the outcome, but in the moment of decision. It's easy to blame circumstances. It's easy to say you didn't have a choice. But the truth is, you always do. It may not be the choice you wanted. It may not be between good and great. Sometimes it's between bad and worse. But even then, your mindset, your response, your next move, they're still in your hands. And no one can take that from you. The person who understands the power of choice stops waiting for life to change and starts becoming the change. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They realize that the shift begins inside. That power is not given. It's chosen. It's claimed when you decide to take ownership of your path, no matter how broken it looks, no matter how far behind you feel. Because what matters isn't how you started. It's what you choose to do next. The thing about choice is that it's not just about the big moments. It's in the daily habits, the way you speak to yourself, the things you allow into your mind. It's in whether you wake up and reach for your goals or reach for an excuse. It's in the decision to love when it's hard, to forgive when it's undeserved, to believe when doubt is louder. Those choices, repeated over time, become character. They become destiny. You don't need all the answers. You don't need to have everything figured out. What you need is the courage to choose better. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's slow. Because with every choice, you are proving to yourself that your life isn't being written by your pain, your fear, or your past. It's being written by your will. And your will, when aligned with purpose, is a force nothing can stand against. Vision beyond the present is what separates those who merely survive from those who rise and lead. It's easy to be consumed by what's right in front of you. The noise, the stress, the demands of the moment, the pressure to meet expectations, pay bills, or make it through another day. But greatness is never built on what is. It's built on what could be. Vision is the ability to see beyond what your eyes are showing you. It's the discipline to dream when reality is screaming at you to settle. And it's one of the most powerful forces a person can possess. The present can be loud, heavy, and unrelenting. Maybe right now your life looks nothing like what you imagined. Maybe you're surrounded by people who don't believe in you, by circumstances that feel more like shackles than starting points. Maybe your current situation feels small, limiting, frustrating. But vision lifts your eyes. It pushes your gaze past the walls around you and into something bigger, something deeper. It's not about ignoring what's real. It's about not being defined by it. Some of the most powerful individuals in history weren't born into comfort. They didn't start with wealth, recognition, or influence. What they had was vision, an ability to imagine a future where their struggle had purpose, where their voice mattered, where the pain had meaning. They saw something beyond what the world told them was possible. They held that image so tightly, so consistently, that eventually it became reality. Vision is not fantasy. It's not wishful thinking. It's clarity. It's the ability to mentally walk through a future that hasn't happened yet and believe in it so deeply that your actions in the present begin to align with that future. It fuels your endurance. Because when you have vision, you don't give up just because things are difficult. You don't throw in the towel just because progress is slow. You keep moving, you keep building, you keep becoming. Because your eyes are locked on something more than the moment. Vision makes the invisible feel tangible. It allows you to act with purpose, even when results are delayed. Without it, people lose direction. They start making decisions based on comfort, not conviction. They chase distractions instead of destiny. They start reacting to life instead of creating it. But when you live with vision, your present becomes a tool, not a trap. You can take pain and turn it into a message. You can take failure and turn it into feedback. You can take a job you hate and use it as a stepping stone towards something greater. The challenge is that vision often makes you look foolish to people who only live in the now. When you speak about where you're going, they'll laugh. When you start making changes that don't make sense to them, they'll criticize. Because most people are afraid of what they don't understand. They think small, they live small, and they want you to stay small too. But vision refuses to shrink. It grows. It stretches. It speaks to something eternal inside of you. The part of you that knows you were made for more. You don't need everything to be perfect in the present to start building your future. What you need is clarity. What you need is the ability to close your eyes and see a version of yourself that isn't bound by fear, that isn't stuck in survival mode, that's walking in purpose, power, and peace. And then you need to open your eyes, get to work, and start making daily decisions that serve that vision. When you live with vision, your goals aren't just about achievement. They're about alignment. You stop chasing everything and start focusing on the right things. You become selective with your time, protective of your energy, intentional with your words. You begin to walk differently, talk differently, think differently. Because you're not living for the now. You're reaching into the next. And even though the present may still be heavy, still be hard, it no longer holds the final word. The final word belongs to the future you're creating with every single step you take today. The grind over the gift is the mindset that separates the talented from the unstoppable. Everyone wants to believe that greatness comes from some natural, born ability, some spark of genius or stroke of luck that magically unlocks doors and elevates a person to the top. But the truth is far more demanding and far more empowering. Talent might open the first door, but it's the grind that keeps you walking through the rest. The gift might give you a head start, but it's the grind that takes you to the finish line. You don't need to be the most gifted person in the room. You just need to be the one who doesn't quit. The one who wakes up early when it's easier to sleep. The one who keeps working when no one's watching. The one who studies harder, fails faster, gets back up stronger. Because gifts fade. Natural ability might get rusty. But the grind, the discipline, the resilience, the relentless pursuit of better, that never runs out. It sharpens. It multiplies. It builds something that talent alone could never sustain. We live in a world obsessed with highlighting the final product, the success story, the award, the result. But nobody shows you the 4 a.m. wake-ups, the lonely hours of practice, the late nights filled with self-doubt. Nobody sees the 100 times you had to fail before something clicked. But that's the grind. That's the part that tests you, molds you, breaks you down just enough so you can rebuild stronger. And if you skip that process, if you try to rely only on the gift, you'll find yourself stuck the moment life stops handing you easy wins. The grind teaches you who you are when things aren't going your way. It exposes your weaknesses and forces you to confront them. It humbles you. It strips away entitlement and replaces it with work ethic. Because when you've earned something through grit and perseverance, you carry it differently. You respect the process. You appreciate the struggle. You don't fear hard work. You expect it. You welcome it. You understand that success built on grind is more lasting than success handed to you by talent alone. Gifted people fall all the time. Not because they weren't talented enough, but because they never learned how to grind. They never learned how to stay consistent when motivation ran out. They never developed the habits, the focus, or the mindset required to endure long term. Talent without effort is wasted potential. But even average skill combined with relentless effort becomes something extraordinary. The grind isn't glamorous. It's often boring. It's repetitive. It demands more than it gives. At least at first. You'll go through seasons where you feel like nothing is working, where no one is noticing, where results are invisible. But if you keep going, if you keep showing up, you build something that no one can take from you. You build character, you build discipline, you build momentum. And once that momentum kicks in, it begins to compound. Not overnight, not suddenly, but slowly, deliberately, inevitably. The most dangerous person is not the most talented, it's the most consistent. The one who trains like they're number 2, even when they've reached number 1. The one who never lets up, who doesn't believe in shortcuts, who refuses to let the gift get bigger than the grind, because they know what it took to get there, and they know what it will take to stay there. The grind doesn't guarantee you'll be the best, but it guarantees you'll be better than who you were yesterday. It puts the power in your hands. You don't have to be chosen. You don't have to wait for a break. You become the break. You don't sit around hoping your gift will carry you. You put your head down and work until you're undeniable. Because while gifts may catch attention, it's the grind that commands respect. Break the cycle. There comes a point in life when you have to look around at everything you've inherited, your habits, your patterns, your pain, your way of thinking, and ask yourself one question: does this deserve to go with me into the future I want to build? Because not everything you've been handed is meant to be carried forward. Some things were meant to be broken. Some stories were meant to end with you. And if you're brave enough to look those patterns in the face and call them out, you have the power to change everything, for yourself and for everyone who comes after you. Cycles don't always look like chains. Sometimes they look like silence. Sometimes they look like always putting yourself last. Sometimes they look like explosive tempers, addiction, avoidance, denial, fear of success, or settling for less than you deserve. You may not have created the cycle, but you feel it. It shows up in your relationships, in your decisions, in your voice when you talk to yourself. It lives in your reactions, in your self-doubt, in the way you chase or run from love. These cycles are subtle, but they're powerful. They're the invisible scripts playing in the background of your life, shaping your reality before you even realize what's happening. But here's the truth that people don't say often enough. Just because something's been in your family, in your community, in your mind for years, doesn't mean it's your destiny. Just because your father never expressed emotion, doesn't mean you can't learn to be emotionally open. Just because your mother lived with anxiety and fear, doesn't mean you have to carry that fear like it's a birthright. Just because the people before you gave up, doesn't mean quitting has to be your ending too. Breaking the cycle is not about blame. It's about responsibility. It's about standing in the middle of everything that tried to shape you and choosing a different direction. It's painful. It's lonely. It's uncomfortable. Because cycles don't break themselves. They resist. They whisper lies to keep you stuck. They'll make you feel guilty for growing. They'll try to convince you that comfort, even when it's dysfunctional, is safer than the unknown. But if you want change, real change, you have to be willing to walk through that fire. You have to be willing to feel everything you've spent years avoiding. You have to be willing to question everything you thought was normal. People will misunderstand you when you break the cycle. They'll say you've changed like it's a bad thing. They'll try to pull you back, not always out of malice, but out of fear. Your growth will challenge the parts of them that don't want to grow. But you have to keep going. You have to keep reminding yourself why you started. You have to remember that your healing is not betrayal. It's a revolution. And every step you take away from the pain is a step towards something your future self will thank you for. Breaking the cycle often means being the first to go to therapy, the first to say no, the first to walk away from toxic love, the first to stop yelling, the first to start listening, the first to invest in themselves. And being the first is hard. There's no blueprint, no applause, no roadmap, just you, your will, and your vision of something better. But what starts with you doesn't have to end with you. The freedom you fight for now becomes the foundation someone else will stand on later. It takes strength to survive, but it takes power to rewrite the story. To decide that just because it's always been this way, doesn't mean it has to stay this way. It takes courage to face the parts of yourself that were never nurtured, to hold space for the child in you that never felt safe, to stop numbing what hurts and start confronting it with truth and love. It means choosing healing over hiding, growth over guilt, clarity over confusion, peace over performance. It means stepping outside of what's familiar and walking into what's possible, even when your knees are shaking and your voice is trembling. It's a daily decision. a radical choice. A turning point that starts not with what you were given, but with what you decide to become. Victory through mindset is not just a motivational phrase. It's a truth that shapes outcomes long before the battle even begins. The greatest wins in life, whether in personal growth, relationships, career, or healing, aren't achieved simply by skill or circumstance. They are achieved in the mind first. Because the way you think, the way you interpret your struggle, your belief in what's possible or impossible, creates a mental framework that either limits you or launches you. Mindset is the lens through which you see the world, and depending on how it's shaped, it can either magnify your potential or magnify your problems. It's easy to believe that life is mostly determined by luck, background, or connections. That the ones who win are the ones who had it easier or who were handed opportunities. But you can have every resource and still lose if your mind is filled with fear, insecurity, or doubt. And on the flip side, you can have very little and still rise, still lead, still break through, if your mindset is locked on growth, resilience, and purpose. Mindset is the quiet engine behind every decision you make. It's the force that whispers, keep going, when the world says, give up. Some people face setbacks and immediately assume it's a sign to stop. Others see the same setback and interpret it as a setup for something greater. The difference isn't in the event, it's in the mindset. A fixed mindset will freeze you in failure. It'll convince you that your best days are behind you, that you're not capable, that you should settle. But a growth mindset turns failure into fuel. It sees obstacles as feedback. It doesn't seek perfection. It seeks progress. And that shift in thinking is where the real victory begins. You can train your body, build your resume, gain experience, master skills. But if your mind is filled with limiting beliefs, you'll never fully step into what you're capable of. You'll hold back. You'll hesitate. You'll talk yourself out of opportunities before the world even gets a chance to. That's why the battle is internal before it's ever external. If you win the war inside your head, the war against doubt, fear, comparison, and shame, you will change the trajectory of your life. Because once your mind aligns with your mission, your actions will follow. Mindset is built, not born. It's not something you wake up with. It's something you shape daily through what you read, what you listen to, who you spend time with, and what you say to yourself when no one's around. It's built in the silence, in the quiet moments where no one sees the work you're doing, but you're planting seeds anyway. It's built in the discomfort, when you choose to do the hard thing instead of the easy one. It's built in discipline, not motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Mindset is what stays when the feelings fade. There's power in choosing to believe in yourself when no one else does. There's power in deciding that your past doesn't define you. There's power in rewriting your inner dialogue, replacing "I can't" with "I'm learning," and "I'm not ready" with "I'm willing to try." These aren't just words. They are mental commands that shape your identity. And once your identity shifts, everything else starts to follow. You begin to move differently, speak differently, take different risks, because your thoughts are no longer your prison. They become your wings. Victory through mindset is not about arrogance. It's not about pretending things are easy or ignoring reality. It's about facing reality with clarity and still choosing to show up with purpose. It's about recognizing that your response is more powerful than the circumstance. It's about cultivating a mindset that bends but doesn't break, that adjusts but doesn't abandon, that stays rooted in truth when fear tries to distort it. Because once your mindset is unshakable, your outcomes start to shift. Not just once, but over and over again. Your life starts to reflect the strength of your thoughts, the discipline of your focus, and the resilience of your belief in what's possible through hard work, vision, and faith. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not the struggle you were born into or the obstacles you face today. Every cycle can be broken, every setback can be turned into a comeback, and every limitation can be challenged by the power of your will. Your circumstances may try to write your story, but the pen is in your hands. You decide whether you stay in the shadow or step into the light. Pain may have marked your journey, but it does not determine your destination. Choice is your greatest weapon, mindset is your greatest shield, and vision is the map that will carry you forward. You don't need permission to rise. You don't need perfect timing to begin. You need hunger. You need honesty. You need to believe that the grind will outlast the gift, and that consistency will carry you when motivation fades. It's not about being born extraordinary. It's about showing up again and again when no one's clapping, when the road feels lonely, when everything inside you wants to quit. That's where the real transformation begins. Not in ease, but in effort. Not in luck, but in relentless pursuit. Every step forward, every choice to stand when it's easier to fall, every moment you reject the limitations of your environment, you're building something unshakable. And it's that fire in you, that refusal to stay down, that quiet decision to believe in something greater. That's how you rise.